Out the Steam version of Melty Blood that just released on April 19th. Check out the options real quick. Pretty normal. Pretty standard. You can do infinite time, fastest time if you want, background volume, sound effect volume, stage animation. I don't know what this does. Character filter. This goes from jaggiest to most smooth. I like somewhere in the middle. Full works for me. Replay saves. This is local only as far as I can tell. The folder is completely empty of all my net play footage. So there's that. You'd have to record live basically if you're doing net play. You have a frames per second thing up there on the top left. I also have it on the bottom left. But just so you can see it on the top, I left it on. Frame rate, you can do half if you want, 30 frames per second. I don't know why you would. Screen filter, this adds like a FX anti-aliasing. It smooths out everything. You notice, maybe you can notice, it has a smoothing effect on all the text and on the sprite on your right, just like this did, which you can see in real time. Got language, Japanese, English, keyboard settings. You can play 2 players on the keyboard, different bindings, controller settings. There's no dual bindings, but what can you do? This supports a lot of resolutions, but not a lot of 16:9 resolutions. Which I kind of like the sidebars, but it's just me. Maybe it's Arcana Heart in my past. Screen mode, full screen or window. I wouldn't recommend full screen. It would be hideous because the game's old and it's sprites and it would be stretched out. Anyway, that basically does it for this. You got your standard modes, arcade, local versus, training, ranking to check your arcade mode ranking, network mode. That's exactly what it sounds like. Alright. Now I have a sheet of notes here I'm going to be referencing, so I'll try to keep the silence to a minimum here, but I will link this sheet of notes that I'm talking about in the YouTube description so you can check it out on my blog. That way you don't have to watch the video 1,000 times if you just want to check something real fast. So, alright. We're going to start with some basics here. Just some universal mechanics. Okay, we got movement forward and back. You can hit 6AB or 4AB to do a forward dash or back dash in case you're not real nimble with a 6-6 or 4-4. You can also double jump. You can jump dash. You can jump dash jump. Jump, jump, dash. You can super jump, jump, dash. Super jump, dash, jump. Whatever you want to do. It's all there. Alright, as far as meter on our HUD, we have time. Standard. We have life bar, guard gauge, the moon type we're using, even the color palette. Is that useful? I don't know. As well as the character, obviously. And on the bottom we have our meter, which you can see. This one is broken up into 3 separate chunks. Our meter goes all the way up to 300%. Full moon also goes up to 300%. Half moon goes up to 200%. And these are different in their properties in ways that I will explain. Okay. Other mechanics. Throws. Why are throws important? Well, throws are combo enders for a lot of different characters. So, throws are very important. Just know that you can combo these. They're not pink throws or anything. They are useful for combo enders. They give you a hard knockdown so you can follow up. Keep Oki on your opponent or whatever you want. Damage reduction, we'll check this out. Alright. Now you see on the left it has a reduce. And if you time your presses at the right time, you can reduce the overall damage you take. Now sometimes it'll say fail if you screw up. But if you are successful, you take less damage. It can be quite a bit, so it's worth trying to do. So, definitely play around with that. It's a cool mechanic. And it only helps you get better. Alright, what else do we have here? Okay, EX Guard. It's like your instant block. What are its properties? I'm not really sure exactly. I do know it gives you a little bit of more pushback. It pushes your opponent back a little bit further. That's the only thing I can really tell. You press block at the same time their attack lands, just like an instant block. Or what have you from your gaming equivalents. Alright. So, there may be more effects to that I don't know. So, test them if you wish. But that's all I'm going to cover for now. So next up we have our guard cancel, which everybody has. You can do it outside of a block string, actually. It uses no meter, it does a little bit of damage. As far as I can tell, you cannot kill somebody with this, despite it doing damage. It does have a guard point on it too, so if you're really cool, you can stuff it in somewhere and blow somebody up. But it's not perfect, you can get punched out of it, so it's only just barely useful if you're really feeling lucky. But you can also use this in block stun. And you see it uses meter. It uses 50 meter. Now, there's one other thing I want to notice here. The guard quality up on top. It's blue, you see the guard gauge. Let's take a look at that again. I'm not taking a whole lot of chip on that sucker, but watch what happens if I ruin it. Oh, suddenly it's just getting destroyed. Oh man. Oh, what's going on? I'm gonna get guard crushed. Oh no. Yeah, you get guard crushed. So, how did I ruin that? Well, there's a couple different ways to do it, and I'll go over one here because it's fairly universal. You have a shield, which lets you parry. And using that ruins the overall quality. So the other way is dodges, and I'll cover that. Those are specific to certain types of moons. So just make sure you keep an eye on your guard quality, because you get guard crushed really easily if you don't. So, I think that just about does it for universal mechanics. Oh yeah, the guard cancel, it only gives meter to your opponent. It's not much, but it's something. Just keep that in mind. Okay, since we're already on Crescent Moons, we'll start with that. Fairly basic. What do we want to start with here? Well, okay. Reverse beats. ABC. That's standard, right? ABC. Well, what about CBA? Yep, okay, reverse beat. This also has an interesting effect. You see the reverse penalty there? It has a high percentage, and it ticks down. So your combos can get pretty bad. It maxes out at 55%, but it prorates your combos really, really bad, so the damage will suck if you keep doing that. But it can be really useful to throw out like a normal will miss, to reset pressure, or to jump or something. It's very useful in that regard. Mix up your pressure. Just take your opponent unaware. So, you can do that on Crescent Moon. It's pretty nice. I like reverse beats. Okay, we're moving to meter. The meter here on Crescent, you get 3 blocks, 300% max. As long as you are over Well, let's start with this. Okay, now we got max. Okay, what's max? Well, it drains our meter. That seems like it sucks, right? Well, yeah, it does. So, why would we want this? Well, there are a couple things you can do with this. One, if you go into max, you can go into blood heat, which allows you to use your most devastating ability, your another arc drive. That's not necessarily the only thing you want to do with it. Although there is, if you're on Crescent Moon and you have over 100%, and if you hit 5 ABC, you will go right into heat mode. Now this is not the same as blood heat. It does give you access to an arc drive, which is pretty strong. It cancels your meter. And gives you, it refunds some. Now, what I just showed you there, okay, we'll do that again, is your arc drive. But when you're in blood heat, it gets a follow-up. I believe this is true for every character. And it's much harder to get into blood heat than regular heat. At least, theoretically. Now, other things you can do... Well, let's not get too far ahead of myself. Okay, as far as meter goes, you can't do anything to increase it, really. You have to basically just block and attack your way to a higher level of meter, and depending on if you want to use it or not, or save it and maybe get max or blood heat or whatever, it's up to you. I showed you the arc drive, which is also available in max. You can do it here too. Let's see. Now we'll go into defensive options. There are other things that you can do with the max meter, and I'll show you those. Okay, that should be sufficient. Alright, first things first. Well, I've got a red bar of HP up there with my yellow bar. My yellow bar is my actual HP. My red bar is my potential HP. You might recognize this from something like Marvel. But, at least on Crescent Moon here, we can regain some of that. And we're going to do that just now. We're going to turn on heat. And you notice I regenerate the life. Well, that's pretty cool. Now, if I let the dummy hit me again, you'll notice I still heal as long as I'm not getting hit. So, that's pretty cool. This also happens in blood heat mode. You notice when I'm in Blockstone, I don't regenerate it either. So keep that in mind. You have to be in neutral to regain the life. But if you are in neutral, even after you started it, you will regain that life back, regardless if you get hit or whatever, just smacked here or there. If you're in heat or blood heat mode, you will continue to regenerate life, regardless of when you activated it. So, you can always heal a little bit if you're wanting to play a little bit more defensively, maybe try and get a life lead at the last minute, something like that. It's there to use. Okay. Now we'll go to parries. I showed you that earlier. That shield. You can special cancel those. As far as I can tell, you can only special cancel them. And let's see. If you hold it, it drains meter. Crescent Moon can hold it the longest. The durations are different based on the moon, and I'll cover that. Another thing to check out here. I mentioned earlier dodging. And I will demonstrate that here. If you hit 2 AB, or down AB, boop, you gain some white aura. Well, that means you're invincible. It carries momentum in the air, because you can also do it in the air, which is kind of cool. It also gives you a little bit of stall. You don't get that stall on the ground. You don't do anything fancy like that. But you do have a few invincibility frames. Don't use it willy-nilly or abuse the crap out of it, because you can see it destroys your guard gauge quality and you'll get chipped and broken if you're really poor with it. So be very careful on how you use it. It's nice, but don't be predictable. Alright, now we'll check out the burst system, which is fairly limited, and you can only do it in max mode. You can't do it in heat or blood heat. So when you get hit, and you hit 5 ABC, you have the opportunity to blow all of your meter and get your opponent off of you. Now, that's an extreme defensive option, but it can save your life if you so choose to do it. So, use that responsibly. It's fairly invincible from what I can tell. I don't know if you can block it. I'm not going to sit here and deal with that. You can test that on your own. But it's fairly invincible. I've seen it go through some crap. What else do we have here? I've already shown another arc drive, but I'll go ahead and do that again. Ah, jeez. If you get a perfect parry, you break your opponent's meter gauge over there as well. It also does a lot of damage, and it's a pretty cool animation. So, next, we're going to check out Full Moon. I like this stage just because it's simple, it's quiet. Alright, Full Moon. What can we do on Full Moon? Well, we still have 300% meter, but we can charge it. Woo! Check that out. You can go right into blood heat, just the same as you could. You cannot reverse beat. You can only forward beat. CBA does not work at all. It's not even possible. Don't even try it. Other things. Yeah, if you want to go into heat mode, it's a little differently. It's activated a little differently here. So you got to go to max, and then while you're on offense, you turn it on. It gives you like a cancel. It's about the only thing in this game that I could refer to as a cancel, but it puts you in heat mode. That's about the only way to do it. So if you really need to cancel something stupid, if you have the opportunity to do it, do it. So, Full Moon's supposedly very offense-oriented, or orientated, however you want to say it. So, there's that. And as long as you have meter, or as long as you have under max meter, you can charge up. You can't charge up when you're already max meter. You can't prolong your meter. That'd be crazy. But this is the only one that will allow it. I will show you normal here. But you can charge all the way up. And boy, does it get fast if you let them charge all the way up. So don't let them do that. Okay. You also get the arc drives. As far as I can tell, they do the same things. Okay. So, what else do we have to cover here? Okay. One other thing I want to make a note of. Oh, Jesus. Okay, you'll notice when I turn on blood heat, I get a knockback effect. It's like a burst. It may have the same properties. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the opportunity to use it much because I use Half Moon and I don't have that. So, just keep that in mind. If you're getting blown up, you can only activate Blood Heat in a neutral state. So, if you have the opportunity to do that, get your opponent off you and go into a very highly offensive state, feel free to do it. It's worth it if it saves your life, right? Alright, moving on here. Alright, we're gonna go and set the dummy. To do some damage. Now I want you to keep an eye on my red HP yet again. Because that's what we're going to be checking out here. Alright. Well, I'll turn on Blood Heat. Oh, my life! It's instantly regenerated. Instantly regenerated. Now, what happens if I get hit, though? I don't gain that back. You gained it back in Crescent if you go back to neutral, but you don't with Full Moon. It's one and done. You get all of your life back in one swoop. So the potential life regenerated by Crescent Moon is higher. With Full Moon, it's instant. So there's a trade-off there. It all depends on what you want, what you're looking for. Okay, now we'll go to Shield. You remember this thing, right? Now you can hold this about half as long as you can on Crescent. It's not as good, but it has all the same properties. It's special cancelable, the same thing. So keep that in mind. Drains meter while active. Like I said, it's shorter duration. Full Moon also does not get access to dodge. If you hit down 2 AB or down AB, you don't get it. You don't get one in the air either. Like I said, it's very offensive oriented. It's one and done. They don't want you doing anything too fancy. Alright, next. Alright. We're gonna do bursts now. Oh, jeez. I screwed that up. Now, you notice it missed there. It does have very short range. So, be very careful on how you're using that. The window to burst is also pretty narrow. So, be on the ball with it if you want to use it. I already showed you the another arc drive. It works just the same as it did on Crescent Moon. And that's pretty much the only... Well, not quite. I want to show one more thing. Now, when you go into regular heat mode, you also get the life regeneration. It's full. As you can see, all the red life is regenerated. So, that's that. Okay, we got one more moon to go through, and this is the one, at least with Satsuki, that I like. Just because I like the moveset more, even though it is a little different. Okay, so what's different here? Well, you can see our gauge, like I mentioned earlier, is only 200%. That seems like it sucks. Well, it kinda does. But you get the opportunity to go into max meter more often. It's easier to get, so there is a trade-off. Yes, it's less potential, but there's also more potential for higher damage spikes here or there. It also has different functions, which I'll cover here in just a second. Other things... Oh, jeez. Okay. Don't worry about that. You didn't see anything. Okay. A, B, C. Okay, we can go CBA again. We've got our reverse beats back. We got our reverse beats. We like them. I've already covered the 2-meter blocks. Heat. As soon as you get full meter, you instantly go into heat mode. You don't go to max. You don't go to blood heat. You go to regular heat, which is it's fine. It has its own use. You can't charge your meter like you can in full moon. Full moon's the only one that can charge. Crescent can't do it either, just to reiterate. And you also get your arc drive. So if you notice, when you use your arc drive, you get a refund on quite a bit of your meter. So don't be afraid to use it. It's not like you're losing a lot. And that follows for the other moons too. I think the meter return it varies, but don't be afraid to use it. Absolutely not. Just make sure you know the limitations on what properties those attacks or abilities have. Let's see. You don't get blood heat at all. I don't know if I mentioned that specifically, but blood heat does not exist on full moon. It does not exist. You can only do heat. No max, no blood heat, heat only. So, sorry if I'm being a little redundant. Okay, now we'll check out the defensive options with this, and now we'll see what we can do. Ah, jeez. Alright, this is a pain. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Medium max. Okay. Now watch as I go into heat mode. My life regenerates like it did in Crescent Moon. It doesn't automatically fill up like full moon. And as you've noticed by my repeated mistakes here, you may not have caught it, but just in case you didn't, when you go into heat mode and you get touched, you burst automatically. It's like a knee-jerk reaction from the game. It's like, oh, I got hit, burst, and it blows you away. So, the downside to that, well, the upside is you immediately get your opponent off you. The downside is you lose all your meter, and the other downside is you don't have a chance to regenerate life. If you're in hit stun, you lose all your meter and burst. If you're in block stun, you can't regenerate. So it has huge weaknesses there. So keep that in mind when you're selecting your character and the moon. Another thing I want to touch on, if you remember the shield that you could hold, the parry, quote-unquote, well, you can only tap it. You can't hold it at all. You can see how many frames I'm holding the button over on the left. And you don't get any longer than a moment. So, if you want to parry, you better make it count. It also destroys your guard quality like every other one. So, if you're going to parry, like I say, make sure it's worth it. It's also special cancelable only, I believe. So, let's see. Shield bunker, same thing. Has the guard point property, does damage, gives your opponent meter. Can't kill them as far as I can tell. And oh, and when you use that on, well, let's do it here. Hang on a sec. Really? Oh, jeez. Okay, I'll just tell you. When you use the guard cancel with half moon, instead of taking 50 heat, it takes 100. It takes a lot more. Why? I'm not sure why they did that. Here, I'll try and, Yeah, you see the big chunk of heat that's missing. Yeah, you see, you lose a big chunk, but you get it back if you arc drive right afterwards. So depends on how you want to use it. Okay, what else are we missing here? Covered auto burst. Also, you may have noticed that since I said there is no blood heat mode, there is no another arc drive. Even on the command list, it doesn't show up. It doesn't exist. You only have arc drive, so you don't get the big cool effect. It's one of the downsides to the half moon. Half moon is supposedly simplified. So you don't get all the bells and whistles, but you do get a little bit of versatility. It just depends. The moons function very different from one another, so make sure you play around with them, find out which ones you like the best. You know, this is just covering offensive and defensive options on a general scale. The various differences on a character level can be very, very, very huge. Very wild. So, just mess around with it. There's a lot there. There's a lot of characters because each moon is a very different playstyle. Alright, I think that about wraps everything up. I am going to call it a day here. Like I said, I will provide a link to a text article of all this stuff I've talked about. Again, this is not exhaustive. It's not all-inclusive. It may not even all be right, but it's what I could do with a few hours this morning. I'm not going to sit here and devote a week to it. And I'll learn whatever else there is in the future as I go. But if you've made it this long, I appreciate you sticking.